you cooked on Dutch ovens before? Any of you? A couple of you, a few of you. You have? You cooked on these? Okay, so the reason I teach this class, I know a lot of people, they think, well, why a cooking class, you know? But when we cannot use electricity and we cannot anymore have fossil fuels, some people don't know how to cook. And so this is a method that you can cook anything in your oven at home, you can cook in a Dutch oven. Outside, not inside. So I want to teach you a little bit how to, it's just you're going to just learn a drop in the bucket today from what you probably need to learn, but at least you can get started and practice. Dutch ovens, they come in cast iron. These are cast iron ones, or aluminum. I won't recommend aluminum. So these are cast iron Dutch ovens. They are heavy. I only brought two with me, my 12-inch and my 10-inch. I have some 14-inch also, but I can't lift anything heavier than a 14-inch. So they do make bigger ones, but you have to have some muscle to move those things. They're very heavy. Dutch oven cooking's been around for a really long time. A lot of think, well, Dutch oven, those are hard to take care of. They're actually not hard to take care of. It just takes a little bit of care to take care of them. You just need to know what to do so that they don't rust, basically. And other than that, we're going to talk a little bit more about that after we get the food started cooking, because the food's going to take about an hour to cook. I've made some garlic potatoes here for you guys and some blueberry cobbler, and so that's what we're going to have along with what Sylvia has made also. She's going to be doing a class down here too, part of this class down here. So the rule of thumb when you're using a Dutch oven, if you're cooking one of your regular recipes, usually you need less water, less liquid, because these hold the liquid. Your food will be very moist, it doesn't dry out, it's super yummy, and it cooks very well. So and the rule of thumb is for heat. When people first start out with their Dutch ovens, they actually will add too much heat to them. They obtain the heat very well and they hold it. And so you don't need a ton of heat. One of the first times I was learning to do Dutch oven, I could tell a few stories on my poor husband, but I had read all the stuff about how to cook, and we had a campfire going, so I pulled a few coals out from the campfire and put it in my Dutch oven and put some more coals on top. And I think I was making biscuits or something like that. And I left to go do something. And when I came back, my husband had come by in the meantime and go, oh, that's not going to cook like that. And he put my pot in the fire and he burnt my biscuits. He was in big trouble. But anyway, so it doesn't take as much heat as you think it's going to take. It takes a lot less. Okay, so this is a 10-inch Dutch oven. So if you're using like the briquettes, now you can use coals from your fire, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. But when you're first learning, I suggest learn from briquettes, because it kind of gives you an idea of how much heat to use. And so, you guys know what briquettes are? You know, they're those coal things you buy for barbecuing and that kind of stuff. A lot of Adventists don't know how to do that kind of stuff, but some of them are learning that more and more. But anyway, so you take those briquettes, and this is a 10-inch Dutch oven, so you're gonna double that by 2. So 2 times 10 is 20, obviously. And so you would use 20 briquettes for a 350-degree oven. Okay, so it doesn't sound like very many, but you would put 1/3 of those underneath the oven and 2/3 of them on top of the oven. Okay, so if you're using 20 briquettes, how much is 1/3? Go ahead and start the briquettes, honey.
7, 6, 7.
Yeah, about 7 briquettes. So you're going to put 7 underneath in a circle underneath the oven, and you're going to put how many on top? Well, 2 times 7 basically is 14. So 14 on top, like in a checkerboard. And so that's how many briquettes it's going to take to make a 350-degree oven for this. Now, if I wanted to increase the temperature, I would add another briquette for every 25 degrees. Okay, so this one is our potatoes.
How many briquettes makes it 350-degree oven?
That's not exactly what I said. For this oven it does,
okay.
Not for this oven. This is a 12-inch oven, and so how it is 12 times 2? 24. So you need 24 briquettes on this size oven for a 350 degrees oven.
Okay.
Okay? And you would again put a third underneath. A third of 24 is
6, 8.
okay, and then how many on top? Come on, you guys, you must know a little bit of math.
8 and 8, 16.
Okay, so 16 and 8, actually, but then we want to make this a 400 degree oven because we're cooking potatoes. And so for a 400 degree oven, how many more briquettes do I need to add to make a 400 degree oven?
Another third.
Okay, and 25 degrees is 1 briquette to add.
Okay.
So I've already got 350 degrees, and if I want to add, so 2 more would give me a 400 degree oven. Okay, so that's kind of the rule of thumb. Now, it varies. This isn't like your oven when you're just turning a knob. So if I'm outside and it is 100 degrees outside, my food's going to cook a little faster. Okay? And if I'm outside and it's windy and it's cold, I may need to add a few more briquettes. Okay? And I may need to watch my briquettes too if it's windy because they may make them burn up quicker and they might not last a full hour. So I'm going to have to add some more. So, did you make me enough briquettes, honey?
I think so.
I don't think so. You better put a few more in there.
Got extras.
A few more, please.
Jim's
Trying to skimp on my briquettes. Okay, so one other way you can cook with your Dutch oven, since our briquettes aren't ready yet, I'll tell you, is anybody know what these are?
lugs.
Yeah, they're like nuts for on bolts. Okay, and I have 4 of them here. So I could take this Dutch oven and I could put 4 of those on the bottom of my Dutch oven, and I could put a cake in here and then put my cake on those. It gives me a little air space under there so my cake doesn't burn on the bottom. And then put that inside my Dutch oven and bake my cake that way. Okay? Or I could put the cake right in the bottom of the Dutch oven too, but you have to be careful you don't burn the bottom of it when you do that. Okay? So there's lots of ways to cook in the Dutch oven. One way that a lot of hunters will do it is they will dig a pit and they'll put their coals in their pit and put their roast or their turkey or whatever they're baking in here, and along with their veggies in the Dutch oven. They usually use a larger one, and then they'll put it down in the hole and put some grass and leaves or whatever over it, and then put more briquettes on top, and then they'll bury it with dirt. Okay, and so that's what they do, and then they'll just leave for the day and go do their hunting or whatever they're going to do at their camp, and when they come back in the day, their meal is ready for them. It's like a slow cooker. Okay, so, but you don't have to do meat that way. You could do your potatoes that way, you could do a stew that way, you could do all kinds of stuff that's even vegan or whatever recipe you want to do and put it in there. One word of caution: if you're doing stuff with a lot of tomato or acid food like lasagna or something like that, and you're putting that in your Dutch oven, the acid tomato can kind of eat away on your finish. See how these are all black inside? That's a nice finish. You don't want it to be silvery. You want it to be that nice black, because that keeps your stuff, it's seasoned. We call that seasoned. And if your pot is getting where it does not look oh, that garlic smells good when I open that up. So when you...
In the garden over here?
Some of it, yeah. And so when you're... Now I forgot what I was saying. I got thinking about that garlic.
You're talking about the silvery.
Oh yeah. So thank you. So if your pan is getting so the finish is kind of coming off, and you can kind of see that silver, you want to re-season it. And to do that, you would want to put like some Crisco or oil on your pan, and then you could either, if you want to do it on a campfire, you'd put like a rack and put it upside down over that and bake it, or you could put it in your oven at home upside down. You'd oil it, and I usually like to use Crisco, and I put it inside and out of my pan, and then put it upside down on the rack with a drip pan underneath it and bake it for about 350 for about an hour, and that'll season it. And a lot of times you can get these Dutch ovens like at yard sales really cheap. They might be rusted a little bit, but that's okay. As long as the edge of them are even, you don't have thin metal and then thick metal, as long as it's even all the way around, and there's no cracks in the pan, it's still really good, and you can just clean it up, re-season it, and use it. Sometimes if there's no season at all and you have to take all that rust all the way down, then you might have to re-season it 2 or 3 times to get that good finish before you start cooking in it. Okay, so that's the rule of thumbs for our Dutch ovens. And so any questions about that I just told you? I have a tendency to talk fast when I get nervous.
The measurements according to the size of the pot, 1/3 is going to go underneath, and then on the top it's going to go
2/3. Yes. Now you're going to find out in a minute we don't always keep that method true, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. But that's the rule of thumb, okay, for your oven. Pardon?
How to reseason the Dutch oven?
I just told you that.
Crisco, okay.
With the Crisco, and then you bake it. Bake your pan.
So you're using the briquettes.
You have to talk louder, I'm sorry.
Using the briquettes to practice instead of using the hot wood.
Yes. Yes, and the reason I do that is because when you're using the coals from the fire, it depends on what kind of wood you're using as to how it's going to cook. At home we use a lot of oak, and oak works really well. It has a nice even temperature, and it doesn't burn up too quickly. And so you kind of learn how many coals to put on, and then you put that on. Now with pine, it's going to burn up a lot faster, and it's going to burn hotter. So you have to learn your woods. And so if you're cooking out of your fire pit, then you need to learn what kind of wood you're cooking with and stuff like that for your oven temperature.
So you're cooking with the coals, never on the fire.
I wouldn't say never, but I have one that's a bean pot. It has extra long legs, about this long, and it's round on the bottom and round at the top, and it's a bean pot, and you actually set that right in the fire, and as it cooks, it boils and moves the food this way in there, so it doesn't burn on the bottom, and so that works really well for that pot.
Have you ever tried the TP?
Hanging it over the top. I haven't really done that much of that. A little bit playing with that, but not necessarily with a Dutch oven. Like a stew or something like that. I've done that. Also, if you notice that these pots, they have this lip on the lid here. That's to hold the coals. Some of the cast iron pots you get nowadays, they have a round lid. Those are not going to hold any coals, so you don't necessarily want those for cooking outside with coals. But you can use them if you get what they call a trivet. And it's a piece of metal thing about this big around, or they come in different sizes. And they have little legs on them, and you would put that on there to hold your coals in place. Or you can put it underneath your pot if your pot has a flat bottom. This pot, you can see again, has legs on it, okay?
What differences or changes would you make if you're cooking that, or like a flat bottom Dutch oven on your wood stove?
On a wood stove? If you're using on a wood stove, I would use a flat bottom.
Right.
Yeah, if you're using this kind, I would put it inside your stove. And we've done that. Again, I tell my husband, my poor husband, but he decided he wanted to make, I think he was making, I don't know if it was biscuits or cornbread, and he put it in my Dutch oven. And because at night we would put like a log in the wood stove at night, and it would burn. In the morning there would be coals in the stove. And so he opened up the stove, and it's already hot because it's been going all night. He pulled the coals forward, put the Dutch oven on there, put some more coals on the lid, and in a few minutes his biscuits or cornbread was burnt. And so he tried it for the next night, and he put less coals, and it was still burnt. And so I said, why don't, the bricks in the bottom of the oven are already hot. You probably don't need any coals underneath it. And so we pushed all the coals back and just put some on top, and then they came out fine. So it depends on your stove too. Our stove was very efficient, and so that works really well. But if it does not have legs, then you can set it on top. But remember, if you're cooking with a Dutch oven, if you're baking, you're going to need to put some coals on the lid, which you could do that in your house, but that's going to smoke up your house, you know. But definitely you could put like a stew in it or something like that and have that without coals on the lid. You just have them underneath. And it's going to depend on your wood stove too. Some of the wood stoves nowadays, they're made and the top of the stove doesn't really get very hot. I've seen some of those, and I mean, it'll hardly get water hot. It just doesn't get very hot. They have like some, I don't know how they're made. But so if you're going to get a wood stove, make sure you get one that the heat is you can cook on it. Yeah, so that works good. It looks like our briquettes are about ready. So how many coals did we say we needed on the bottom of this one for 400 degree oven?
Oh, we said 2 more, 10.
So we need actually,
Plus 2, 18.
Under the bottom.
we need 9. Because we're going to put an extra coal underneath and an extra coal on top. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our coals here. And I'm gonna move this over here so you guys won't be cooked out there. Okay, and we're gonna just put 9 coals here in a circle. I hope they're going good enough. They look like they're not quite ready. We'll try to get the ones from the bottom here. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I know that doesn't look like enough coals to cook this for 400 degrees, but we're going to just see if that works. If somebody wants to come and lift this and see how heavy it is, please be my guest.
Well, we saw what you
No volunteers? Okay.
Are you struggling? We take your word.
Okay, so how many go on the lid?
18.
Okay.
Papa te llama.
17. She put 1 on the bottom and put 1 on the top. Right?
Yep. Ouch. That hurt. Huh? No, I lost count. I'll count them in a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Have you ever tried cooking with a Lodge skillet?
Pardon?
You know the skillet, the brand Lodge?
Oh yeah. I have several of them. My favorite one is my 12-inch one. I use it all the time.
I have one at home, but I think that I wasn't aware that I had to cure it.
Season.
Oh, season it. Sometimes a lot of the Lodge come pre-seasoned, so you don't have to season it. In fact, I haven't seen a Lodge yet that didn't come pre-seasoned.
What's the name of the piece you have to put on top? It has a rounded top.
A trivet. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Ugh. Is that 17? Whew. Let's see if we can fix this. Okay.
Wilderness experience.
Linda?
Okay, who would like to put the coals up here? Come on, don't be couch potatoes.
Oh, you can do that. That's cheating, but it's clever.
Who wants to put the coals on top of this one? No takers? Come on, guys.
Okay, I'll put a few. How many we need? We said 7. We said 14.
14.
Get from the bottom one.
You can't tell her how to do it unless you come and do some.
Oh yeah, okay.
I'll leave some for her.
Yeah, leave some for her.
I'll keep quiet.
Come on.
Go ahead, you got one behind you.
I think the,
You want to do it? Okay, let's see. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Was that 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We need 14. 9, 10, 11, 12. Get the ones with the white on them. Yeah, that's good. 13. And one more. And we kind of want these like a checkerboard, so I'm just going to rearrange them just a little bit. Here, you got them almost perfect. We're just going to put them a little bit like that. How's that? Is that good? Okay, thank you so much.
Small pot is 10. It's 10 inches, and the large one is 12 inches.
Yeah,
how many hours again to cook?
about an hour. Okay, you cook it about the same time you would in your oven at home. Okay, so now the thing is with this, you're going to be tempted to peek in there and see if it's cooking, right? You're like, oh, that's not enough coals. So you're going to want to peek. Don't peek. No peeking is allowed because you're going to lose your heat when you do that. So we're not going to look until we can really smell that food cooking. Then we're going to look, okay? So not till then. So that's what we call Dutch oven cooking, and I hope you guys really like it. And so one other thing I want to teach you while we have that there is how many of you make your own medicinal charcoal?
How many what?
Make your own medicinal charcoal. Okay, or how many of you use medicinal charcoal? Maybe that's what I should ask. Okay, quite a few of you, but you're obviously buying it still. Okay, so buying it is fine right now, but there will be a time when you are not able to buy your charcoal. So I'm going to tell you how to make it. So
Sylvia, you showed us this also. She may make it different than you.
Oh yeah, use a different method, I guess.
probably, but anyway, to start with, yeah, there's more than one way to do it, right? So to start with, I'm going to just tell you a little story. You can use charcoal right out of your fire, and I knew of some people that were expert mushroomers. You guys know what that is? Someone who likes to go out and gather the wild mushrooms and eat them. And these people were experts, so to speak, and they love to go and gather their mushrooms and then eat them, and while they're camping, and that's what they did. They love to do that. And one time they were out there gathering their mushrooms, and they had gathered them, and they had eaten them, and they started getting sick, and they thought, oh no, we've made a mistake. And they had eaten a poisonous mushroom. And so their phones fortunately worked, and they called 911, but they were so sick they couldn't even stand up. So they crawled to their fire pit, and they started eating the charcoal out of their fire pit, the cold charcoal from the night before. And it saved their lives. By the time the paramedics got there, they still went to the hospital and stuff, and I think they were given more charcoal there. But the charcoal they ate, if they hadn't eaten it, the paramedics said they would have been dead. from the mushrooms that they had eaten. So medicinal charcoal, we always think we have to have this fancy stuff that's called activated charcoal that we buy at the store, and otherwise it's not going to work. Well, the charcoal from the fire works about 80% as well as activated charcoal. That's quite a bit. You may have to use a little bit more of it, but it's going to work still. So it does not have to be, quotes, activated charcoal. I call mine medicinal charcoal instead of activated because I don't do the activation process. They use a hard wood commercially, and then they hit it with some kind of acid to activate it, which opens the pores in the wood. Okay, if you use a softer wood, the pores are already open, so you don't really have to do that. It's got a low open pore.
You're not supposed to use softwood because it has pitch.
Well, it depends on what kind of, only if you use pine or evergreen. Okay, we're not using evergreen.
Cedar.
I like to use willow, but Mrs. White talks about using eucalyptus that she used. So that works. And actually, I have made charcoal with eucalyptus just to try it because after reading what she did in Australia. And I think the reason she used that there is because that's what she had. But there's also a story in there about where she treated a man that had, I'm not sure if he had an abscess, I think it was an abscess or something like that. And she told him to go to the blacksmith and get some charcoal and ground it up and bring it to her. And he did, and she made him a poultice. You know, so charcoal is charcoal. I mean, there are some that works better than others, but, and of course we like things pure and clean, and so we're gonna show you how to make medicinal charcoal. Okay, this is just a piece of.
We wouldn't use this charcoal from the briquettes, would we?
No.
Okay.
Have you heard of coconut charcoal?
Yes, I've heard that's very good. Some people swear by that's the only kind they make. You know, again.
It's for like the EMFs and things like that.
Yeah.
Radioactive.
Yeah. Again, though, if you're. I think probably any kind of will probably work. But, I mean, if you're out in the woods here, I don't see any coconuts growing. So you're not going to have coconut hull charcoal. You're going to have to use something else. And I'm not familiar with all the wood here, but I know they probably have poplar. And they probably have, I don't know if they, maple. You could use maple, poplar, any of those. And a lot of time in our classes, we'll pick some willow and we use it for other stuff, for some carving lessons and making toothbrushes and other stuff. And so I have some left over. So a lot of times when I have that, I'll just peel it. One reason I peel willow, anybody know what willow bark has?
Aspirin.
Aspirin. So willow bark has aspirin. And I don't know if it was in my charcoal if it would make any difference or not. I just peel it off just to make sure. But and I've always wondered too if I was going to eat willow bark for the aspirin because I had a pain somewhere, how much would I actually need to get the effect? I don't know. If anybody knows that, I would love to know that information. So anyway, so I get my sticks and I peel them and I just let them dry. Okay, so these have been drying because you don't want to use green wood whenever you're cooking wood. Okay, and then what I do is I chop them up and split them into little long pieces like this, just little sticks of wood. And I put them in my little bag until I'm ready to make charcoal. And so when I'm ready, I've got it ready. Now, this is just a tin that I got. A lot of times at the holidays you can get these with cookies and stuff in them. Of course, you would never want to eat the cookies, right? Well, maybe. But anyway, so you drill a hole in your tin, in the lid of your tin, just like that. And then I would put my tin in the fire and burn off any lacquer or paint or anything like that on it. You don't want that in your charcoal. So you burn that off. Put your tin in the fire and you just burn it until all that's gone. Take it out and just scrub it up and your tin's ready to go. Okay, and you can use your tin over and over. You can tell this one's been used quite a bit. I use them until they get a hole on them and then I toss them and get me a new one. Okay, so you guys see I've got it full of sticks. See that? It's full of sticks. And so what you would do then is you would put this in the fire, in the coals. I usually just set it in the fire on the coals and pull some coals up around it. And pretty soon you will see smoke and fire coming out of this hole. And just leave it in there, and it'll stay in there until there's no more smoke and fire. And usually then I will take and I will tap it. when I don't see any more. See, I've got some stuff there coming off of it. And a lot of times if you tap it, you'll see a little more smoke or fire coming out. Well, it's not quite done, almost. And so when there's no more smoke or fire come out, then you just some tongs or some sticks and lift it out of the fire. Your charcoal's ready. But then you would want to let it cool. If you open your can, it might burst into flame and all your sticks are gone. So let it cool before you open it. After it's cooled, your sticks are going to look like this. I don't know if you can see them in here. I'll pull some out. You're going to have these long charcoal sticks, just like that. Now, you don't have to use a can this shape. You can use any shape. You can cut them any way you want to cut them. I just like these. I think they're really cool. And so that's what I have in my little charcoal sticks. And then you could actually, if you're an artist, you could draw with them. Or you could just chew on them like this. Or what I like to do is we have a little Corona cornmeal. And we just hook that up and we ground it and make powder. So that's my charcoal powder. And so it'll take several cans full to get a jar of powder. So it grinds up, you know, pretty powdery. And then, so this is ready to go. And I don't like to store my charcoal in plastic containers. I like to use glass because glass is not going to absorb anything else. And after you once have it made and cooled and you get it ground up, I would put it in your jar as soon as possible because you don't want it to absorb things from the environment. So I would get it put away right away. And so that's one way to make charcoal. So,
Two questions.
yes.
What's the purpose of the hole in the center of the can?
Well, you basically are trying to cook without air. But of course, if there's no air at all, the fire is just going to die. And so you have a little hole so the gases or whatever is in there can come out.
If you don't have a hole, it blows.
Your wood is green, it's not dry, right?
Pardon?
Your wood is green or dry?
No, it's dry.
It's dry? Okay, we use green.
No, I use dry wood to cook
That's
it.
why you don't have a hole.
Well, the Dutch oven we use does have a little hole on the side of the lid, and air the fumes come through there.
Oh.
You have to have an air vent for those fumes to come out.
Yeah, some of the Dutch ovens, these two don't. My 14 does, has a little slit on the thing and a little slit on the lid, and you can line those up. And so you have a little vent on your Dutch oven. These two do not. My larger one does. I don't like to make it in my Dutch oven just simply because it kind of ruins the finish inside your Dutch oven. You have to re-season it. So.
We use it just for charcoal. I was just back there, it's full of charcoal.
Oh, you only use it for charcoal?
Only use it for charcoal.
Okay, so. Anyway, so yeah, I've heard of people that make it in their Dutch ovens, and that's fine. You can do it any way you want to do it. The cans are cheap and easy. I use my Dutch ovens for cooking. She uses hers for making her charcoal. So whatever you like to do, there use another method. There's always more than one way to do things. So I was going to show you how to make a slurry. Do you guys already know how to make a charcoal slurry?
Sure.
Does anybody not know how to make a charcoal slurry? Okay, so I'll show you how to make a charcoal slurry. So to make a charcoal slurry, I like to use my just a little cup. This is just a little, it's actually a little measuring cup, but.
I just wanted to kind of recall what she was trying to say. If you will eat that type of charcoal, like store-bought, I just want to emphasize that you cannot eat that as charcoal, right?
Yes.
The briquettes?
Yeah.
Oh, the cooking charcoal?
Yes.
No.
No, you don't use that for charcoal.
Yeah, so
For medicinal charcoal.
just making it clear because
No. If it's the charcoal that they burned from the wood last night, you can eat that. But not the commercial stuff that you buy in the bags. I wouldn't use that.
because we have
Get this started.
Okay, Jim, do you remember a couple days ago, when was that? We did the flint and steel fire starter. You guys remember that? To make your charred cloth for that is basically the same way you make your medicinal charcoal, except for instead of using wood, you're using cotton cloth. And so this, I was going to go, because this demonstrates the same method. And so, you put it on too tight, I can't get it off. Okay, so this is filled up with just cotton denim, okay? It's pieces. And so what you would do is now on this, you want to be able to seal it. And so you just line up your little holes. And then put it in the fire, the thing's right there.
Yep.
And you want to put it in the fire where you can, that's just a little tin, yeah. And you can use like those mint cans. You don't need to put a hole in those because they already have a hole where the hinges are, with the
It has a
hinges.
lid with hinges. It already has holes from the hinges. But if it doesn't have hinges, if the lid fits on, you'll have to make a hole. Otherwise, when you burn it, it'll blow the lid off. Okay, I store the charred cloth in my flint and steel fire kit. And so I want to be able to seal that off. And so instead of putting the hole in the top, I put the hole in the side through the lid. So if I have the holes offset, then it seals off. But if I want to char something, I can line up the holes and then the holes coming out. So I'm going to put this in here and this will cook. You know, as like Becky said, as it's happening, there'll be smoke squirting out of here, or if that catches flame, then it'll have flame coming out.
And what do you use the cloth for?
Pardon?
What do you use the cloth that is inside?
For fire starting. We'll demonstrate that again, okay?
I think some of you missed that demonstration. You weren't here yet, so you came later. So
That's
we'll do that.
denim. What other type of cloth can you use?
You can use any 100% cotton, or you can use like a linen.
T-shirt?
Yeah, and if you're out in the woods and you can't get cloth, you can use like rotten punk, that spongy rotten wood. You can use that.
Yeah.
So that works
That
too.
actually catches the spark better. It's a little harder to work with because it's more crumbly, whereas the charred cloth will hold its shape better.
Okay, you're off the video, so you need to hurry up and come back over here.
I'm just going to stick this in the fire.
In the time period?
Yeah, how do you tell when it's done? That's a question everybody asks.
I do it over there.
You want to do it over there?
I do it over there.
Okay.
So I just turned around.
Okay.
He already recorded that.
It's done when it's done.
Okay.
When it doesn't squirt anymore.
How long does that take?
About 35 minutes.
Okay.
30 minutes?
Just watch and see. Depends on how hot your fire is, how much stuff you have in the can. A lot of variables like that.
So you would do your medicinal charcoal basically the same way as far as cooking it.
The process is exactly the same. It takes a little bit to warm up, but once it gets hot, you'll see it squirting out.
We used to take our little Corona meal with us and cook the stuff and do it all, the whole process, and let you grind it up, but it's just too much stuff to bring with us clear across the country, so we just kind of show you instead. So I hope you will take the information and try this at home. Try making some of your own stuff.
Start getting poured out now, see it?
Okay, so back to medicinal charcoal. I just want to give you a few instances of how to use medicinal charcoal. Let's say, okay, one time we were down on the bottom of Mexico and we were working at a self-supporting school down there, and one of the interns at the hospital there by where we were working, she was like a 22-year-old girl, and she had squeezed a pimple on her lip, and instead of the poisons going out, it went back in. And the next morning her whole face was swollen huge. And the doctor there says, oh, we don't have any antibiotics. We're going to have to go and remove part of her lip because that infection is going to go to her brain. What? And myself and another nurse were like, no, just give us 24 hours. We can fix this. And so he says, okay, but that's all the time I can give you, because he was worried about the infection going into her brain. And so what we did is we took some charcoal, just like this, some powdered charcoal, and we made it into a poultice.
How much you?
Okay, and so, well, we made it quite a bit. This I'm only just making a little bit right now, but if you're making a poultice, depends on how bad the infection is as to how much you're going to need. And so, just going to use a little bit of water in here. I know a lot of times people add flaxseed to their charcoal, and the reason for that is that it helps keep it moist. It doesn't dry out so fast. You can also, if you don't have flaxseed, just watch your poultice. If it starts drying out, add a few more drops of water to it. Just keep it moist. That's all you have to do, and it works perfectly well. I've used a flaxseed a few times. I found it didn't work any different than when I didn't use it, and so I really don't use it. But I have used charcoal many, many times. Now, I made this a little bit runny, but
This isn't slurry.
this is more of a slurry, yeah. But for a poultice, you would make it more like a paste, okay? And then what we did for this lady, we made it kind of on a paste, and then I had a bandana, so I wet my bandana, wrung it out, put the poultice in, then we put it over her lip. We left it on for 2 hours, and then we did a alternate hot and cold. So we had a pan of hot water with a washcloth in it, and a pan of cold water with a washcloth. We put the hot on for 3 minutes, and then put the cold one on for 30 seconds. And we did that, alternated that for 20 minutes, and then we put a new poultice on for 2 hours. And 2 hours, we did alternate hot and cold again for 20 minutes, and then put the poultice on for 2 hours. And we did that throughout the night. By the morning, she was back to normal. And that's with no antibiotics, nothing else. That's just charcoal. Charcoal is amazing, but you need to learn how to use it because it could save somebody's life. You know, so that's how you make a poultice. You just add water to it and stir it up. Now this one is what I call a slurry. And a slurry, what you would use that for, like, let's say you ate something and you got food poisoning and you've got diarrhea and maybe even vomiting. You could drink a slurry. Now sometimes you might throw some of that slurry up. That's okay, just wait a couple hours and take another one, okay? And usually it'll stop the diarrhea or the vomiting in just after a few doses. It doesn't take very many. One time I had an infection, I had a tendonitis in my shoulder and the doctor injected it. He didn't clean the skin before he injected it. I was there in the office and I looked over and I saw him, I thought, you didn't clean it. I was so mad at him. I mean, being a nurse really is important to me. And so, sure enough, I got an infection in my shoulder. And so I went back to the doctor and he gave me antibiotics. I should know not to do that. I don't tolerate antibiotics very well. But I took his antibiotics and of course it made me sick. So he gave me some different ones and I took those and they made me sick. And he kept switching them up. And finally I was into this about 3 weeks. I was so sick. I couldn't keep anything down. I had terrible diarrhea and I was dehydrated. Now they were giving me IV fluids. And it was all from the antibiotics. And so finally I just said, you know what? Just let me be at home and do this by myself. Let me just rest for the weekend. So I went home on the weekend and I says, Becky, you know better. What do you know to do? And so I made myself some charcoal slurries just like this. And I drank it down. And it stayed down amazingly. And a few hours later, I think it was like 4 hours later, I took another one and that was it. That's all I needed and it all went away. My stomach was settled, the diarrhea went away, and I was pretty much back to normal. And put a charcoal poultice on my shoulder and it made it better too.
You know when drinking charcoal, activated charcoal with water, you have to drink lots of water to flush it out?
Yes.
Same thing when you take the slurry?
Yes, after I take the slurry, I drink some water. So you always want to do that. In fact, this is a medicine. Think it like a medicine. You don't ever overdose on a medicine. My mother-in-law, bless her heart, a couple years ago, she says, Becky, I ate something and I've got diarrhea. Can you make me some charcoal? So I said, sure. So I made her one of these slurries. She drank it down and I went to bed and I thought she went to bed, which she had. But later she got up. She started thinking, well, I don't think I got enough charcoal. And so she decided to take some more. So she made herself some more charcoal. Well, a day or so later, she says, Becky, I'm so constipated from that charcoal, I don't know what to do. And I says, well, why? She goes, well, after I went to bed, then I decided I needed more. And so I went and I made myself some more. And I says, well, how much did you use? She says, about a half a cup. So she had made about a half a cup of charcoal slurry and drank it. And she was so plugged up. And so, so then we had to get her prune juice, and we gave her water, and we flushed and flushed and flushed. You know, more isn't always better. More is just more, and sometimes it can be damaging. So this is a medicine. You don't want to overdose. You want to take it wisely, and always follow with water. Thank you.